And tonight it's being called a picture of horror. A commercial jet plane carrying 150 people plummeting for 8 minutes before slamming into a remote section of the French Alps. All aboard, including 2 babies and 16 students, are feared dead. Today's crash now calling into question flyer safety on budget airlines. The plane was nearly 25 years old. The average age of commercial jets in this country about 12. The big question, do low-cost carriers crash more often? We're asking Kathleen Bangs, a former airline training pilot and aerospace journalist, and retired American Airlines captain Phil Orban. Phil, I will start with you. So we have recovered the black box. It's being looked at now. It is said to have been found in a field that was pulverized. How long does it take to get information out of a black box? When can we start hearing answers to what is truly a mystery about what happened to this plane?
Well, the black box that they've recovered, I understand, is the cockpit voice recorder. That's digital, and that will be able to be played with proper equipment probably within a day. Now, the investigative department will probably take control of that to make sure that it does not get opened improperly or downloaded improperly to lose any of the information.
Well, I want to ask the same question, Kathleen, to you. We're looking at the most recent pictures of the site here, and you can get a sense of how rugged it is, how tough it is for investigators and people coming through the site to try to put together the pieces. When might we get answers? I think people are all asking the question, why wasn't there a distress call? Why no Mayday? What's your best thought here?
Right. Well, I think we're going to get answers quite soon. I mean, this is such a better scenario than what we've had with the recent crashes over in Indonesia, because obviously we're dealing with a crash on the ground. And the fact that it's in the mountains, it is in the Alps, but the elevation from the wreckage is only at about 5,000 to 6,000 feet. There's already been a lot of snow melt, and one of the things that's really going to help investigators in this accident is that they've already recovered one of the black boxes. So I would not be surprised if within a week we begin to get some data released that was on that black box. But yeah, so far a mystery, but I think that this is going to be one that's going to be solved a lot sooner than some of the more recent high-profile crashes.
So, Phil, to you, the A320, considered a workhorse for Airbus. I think everybody's flown on one of these. What do you have to say about this particular airplane and the fact that it was 24 years old?
Well, the airplane is a current production airplane, and it has had a C-check, which they call a heavy inspection, within the past 24 months, which basically goes through all components of the airplane: structure, electrical, mechanical, hydromechanic. So the airplane is brought up to standards to make sure that it is completely airworthy. So I think that because of the 24 years, you'd say, well, that seems like an awful lot, but with all the amount of the work that's done on the airplane to make sure that it's airworthy and brought to the current standards, I don't consider that that is a major fault of this crash.
Kathleen, do you agree? I mean, is there some issue with this plane, with this style, this make, this model of plane?
Well, one of the things we're going to find out is that, it is a high-cycle airplane. It's got almost 50,000 cycles on it, and that is a lot. But, of course, it's all in how well it's maintained. And one of the things it's got going for it is the parent company is Lufthansa Airline, which is a very, very highly regarded airline, yeah, not just in Europe, but worldwide.
Pardon me, when you say high cycle, what do you mean?
That the airplane has flown a cycle, which is takeoff to landing, almost 50,000 times. So it's a short-haul airplane. So that's a fairly this airplane's been used. And so what the smoking gun on this is with that high cycle that it's got on the airframe, and the fact that distress obviously happened just as soon as they leveled off. So they got to their highest altitude. That fuselage was under the greatest pressure it was under at that point, and within 3 minutes we have a descent. We don't have an emergency descent. We have a controlled descent, but it seems to be some sort of emergency. In other words, the airplane was not out of control, but it seems that the pilots put it into a very stabilized descent, which tells me possibly loss of decompression, possibly smoke in the cockpit. But yes, very mysterious why they didn't turn, why they didn't divert, why they made, of course, the biggest mystery, no call to air traffic control.
No call to air traffic control, and they were descending at a rate of about 4,000 in every 6 minutes. Can we get to this idea, though, of budget airlines? We all book on budget airlines. Phil, to you, you flew American. That's not a budget airline. But is there any reason to think that people would be less safe on a budget airline than they would on one of the major carriers?
I think not, because the budget airlines, while they may have lower staffing levels for a number of agents, they may have younger longevity people at lower pay scales, they are still required to go under the same level of training and the same level of proficiency checks as the mainline carrier of Lufthansa.
And Kathleen, do you agree? We're looking right now, by the way, at a list of incidents. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got to disagree somewhat. Years ago, when ValueJet was in existence, people might remember ValueJet, which later became AirTran. I wouldn't fly on ValueJet. In fact, the company I worked for tried to get us to deadhead the airline that I worked for. Deadhead means ride to get in position to take your flight as a pilot on ValueJet, and I refused because they had such a bad safety record, bad training. I knew pilots that were very dissatisfied there. So, and when you look over at Air Malaysia, Malaysian Airlines, that, in years of record profits the last couple of years, that company was teetering on bankruptcy. And corners do get cut when airlines are losing money. But I'm very leery of budget carriers. Now, that does not mean that this one falls exactly into that realm, because, again, Lufthansa, as its parent company, has an excellent reputation.
Indeed, they do. And, of course, people fly, 8 million people fly every single day, and it's safer than backing out of your driveway in a car, typically. But before you go, Phil, I just want to mention to you and get both of you to weigh in on the idea of, if you're concerned tonight and you're booking a trip, is there something in the planning that you can do that will reassure the family, reassure you to make sure you're going to be safe? Phil, to you first.
Well, this is sort of difficult. If the plane's going to crash into a mountain, you can do very little.
Thanks, Phil. That makes me feel really good.
If you're going to seat yourself on the airplane, you could listen to the flight attendants as far as stowing equipment, maybe being by an exit, emergency exit. If there's a reason to get off the plane, if there's a skid off the runway and they're going to evacuate the airplane, you don't want to go back and get your purse or your computer. You want to follow instructions
and do what they say.
Exit the plane as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
And Kathleen, to you, can I look up the age of the aircraft? Can I figure out how long my pilot has been flying? I mean, what kind of information do I have access to?
You could if you knew way in advance, but the thing is pay attention. I say don't be a sheep on that airplane. Pay attention those first 3 minutes from takeoff and into initial climb, and those 10 minutes before landing, because that's when the bulk of the accidents happen. Sit in the back of the plane, sit by an exit if you can, don't have your earbuds in, don't wear high heels, don't not be paying attention, have that seatbelt on, be ready to brace, be ready to get off that airplane. If I was on an airplane and something happened, we skidded off, anything happened, I'm not listening to what people tell me. I'm going to get off that airplane. So that's what people have to have, that mentality. Get off that airplane as soon as something goes wrong, because you've got about 90 seconds and a lot of survivable accidents before you're going to become overcome by smoke and fire.
Well, great advice and great perspective here to both of you. Kathleen and Phil, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you.